Okay, so I think we can begin now. Thank you so much for everyone that has come so far. We are on our third session of our monthly lunch and learns as Douglas Leadership Academy, and I am honored to have you all today. So, the topic today is uniforms to unemployment. Are your children future ready? Presented by Ramos Michel. So you're welcome, all of you. My name is Ramos Michel. I am an executive assistant at Douglas Leadership Academy and an alumna of King's College, Budo. Yes, so Douglas Leadership Academy is a company, soon to be a school, that is reimagining what education is in the world. So far, we've started in Uganda, progressing slowly to the rest of the countries. Okay, so this is our team. Kevin Tusime, our founder, and Nabagala Kotni, my colleague and executive assistant also at DLA. So what is this all about? Well, we're going to talk about the education employment gap, what brings the gap, how we are getting there, and how we can bridge that gap. Yes. So, lost in transition. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the incredible work we are all doing in transforming education in Uganda. The lower secondary CBC, competency-based curriculum that's being implemented is exactly the kind of forward thinking that we are here to discuss today. So let me start with a story. In 1920, if you walked into a hospital, a factory, and a school, then traveled forward to time today, what would you recognize? The hospital? Yeah, they are transforming. We're seeing them move from X-rays to MRIs, from basic surgeries to robotic procedures. Okay, maybe not exactly in Uganda, but we still see it coming, yes. The factory, it's unrecognizable. Okay, maybe you can look at the walls and remember the past, but we see them move from assembly lines to AI-powered automation. But then the school, the desks, chalkboard, teacher at the front, students sitting listening to the teacher, it's quite familiar. Like that's been it. That's been our story since 1920. So this isn't a criticism. It's an opportunity. And Uganda, with our CBC reforms, we are already seizing that opportunity. Now, the changing world of work today. Let me share some global statistics that keep education ministers awake at night. 47% of jobs globally will be impacted by automation. 60% by 2030. The demand for technological skills will increase. 65% of children entering primary school today will work in jobs that don't yet exist. And 40% of children and 40% of creativity and critical thinking demand will rise. That's the percentage, but it will rise. But here's what is exciting. These aren't just challenges. There are opportunities for Uganda to leapfrog to traditional models. Now, recently, I have spent the last few months studying how different countries are responding to these challenges. And what we found is the most innovative schools, they share certain characteristics. They're not trying to predict specific jobs. No, that's impossible. Instead, they're building what we call the future-ready competencies. Today, we are seeing our children leave school ill-prepared for the workplace, pointing to gaps that need urgent attention. In Uganda, the situation is especially pressing. Half of the population is under 18, yet youth unemployment is among the highest in Africa. Wow. About 700,000 youth enter working age each year, but only 90, but there are only 90,000 formal jobs available annually. Now, these numbers are familiar, but it's become our new normal in Uganda. But for the world today, and the one that we're sending our children into, they demand something completely different. So here's what a future ready graduate would look like. So now imagine a student who graduates with strong foundational understanding. And this is not just memorization, but actual deep understanding, digital literacy, like they don't just use computers, like, okay, I know my way around Microsoft PowerPoint, around Microsoft Office, but they actually create and solve problems with technology. Problem solving and creativity, they approach challenges with creativity and are able to solve them really quickly and innovatively. Collaboration abilities, they are able to work across diverse cultures and disciplines, and entrepreneurial thinking. These graduates do not just see opportunity, they see opportunities and not just jobs. Now that is a future ready graduate. This vision is still far from the reality of many learners today. Why? Because while the world has changed, our education systems are still catching up. This gap between school and the real world isn't accidental, it's actually structural. And unless we understand what causes it, we can't close it. So let's take a look at what brings this gap. So, number one, theory over practice in curriculum. Our education system has long emphasized theory at the expense of practical skills. This overemphasis on book learning means students excel at memorization with struggle, and these students excel at memorization, but they struggle with hands-on tasks and problem solving. Many students and teachers view education merely as passing exams, and some teachers often just teach only what will be examined. Others that would teach everything, okay, I mean the theory here, they teach everything, but as you go and consult, after not understanding something, they will tell you, don't worry too much, you never hardly states this. You say, okay. Or they can tell you, they don't ask how, as long as you know the experiment, you're okay. Now, these cheat codes, as I like to call it, however efficient they are in the moment, when it comes to passing these papers, they are very disadvantageous to the student. That how question that was never answered left out the concept that the learner required to have had to be able to apply what they've been learning at school. So now here's some food for thought. Can your child that finished S4 did all those years of physics and science in primary, and they come home and let's say your flat iron is spoiled, are they able to repair it? Now, these are basic skills that a physics learner by the end of S4 should be able to apply. Now, employers today frequently complain that even degree holders lack real job skills. This is what one of them said. Many university graduates show up with qualifications but little hands on experience, while the vocational school graduates are work ready and don't need training from scratch. You see? In short, our system produces knowledgeable but not competent graduates. This reflects the gap between the academic content and practical workplace demands. Well, that's it for theory over practice in curriculum. Now, number two, we see the exam-oriented learning and high-stakes testing. Uganda's secondary schooling has long been driven by the high stakes tests, the UNEB exams, that dominate educational priorities. Success in these exams is seen as a ticket to good schools and universities, yes, but this creates intense pressure on students, teachers, parents, everyone. It comes time for candidacy classes. They tell you from like S3 third term, you're now the candidates, you're now the candidates. So you go for holidays, you're now the candidates, you're now the candidate. That's all that's ingrained in your head. What does this mean? You have to pass, you have to pass. Your parents are buying all the question banks possible. Um, the teachers are coaching, the school is seeing which mock paper have they not received. Parents are, it's so much pressure for everyone in general. But unfortunately, this teaching to the test culture has been encouraged at the expense of actual understanding. We see many secondary schools focusing relentlessly on drilling mock papers, predicted questions, so as to like maximize the D ones. I know. Is it true? Hi everyone. I apologize for what just happened. I My sincerest apologies. Okay, so I guess the problems started happening when I was talking about exam-oriented learning and high-stakes testing. So I will recap that and speak through it again. Hopefully, nothing else will happen during the rest of this session. Okay, so we're talking about exam-oriented learning and high-stakes testing. Uganda's secondary schools have long been driven by the high-stakes tests. Those are the UNEB exams. O level, we see the UCE exams. A level, we see the USCE exams. Now, these have been dominating educational priorities for a very long time. Yeah. So now, success in these exams have been seen as the ticket to good schools or universities, which creates intense pressure on students, teachers, parents, everyone in general. We see students trying to cram as much as they can before the papers. They have to understand everything. The parents are scrambling here and there. We have to get mock papers, all kinds of question banks for their students, the teachers, coaching class, revision class, remedial class, everything. Everyone is stressed because of these UNEB exams. Now, unfortunately, this teaching to the test culture has been encouraged at the expense of actual understanding. So we see secondary schools today focusing relentlessly on drilling past papers and predicted questions so as they can maximize the D ones, because these exam results, the INEB results, have been tied to school reputation and whatnot. Now, such an environment leaves very little room for creativity and critical thinking for these students. Um, Maybe the most creative you could get was how what new methods can I invent to stay awake longer, to read more, to get all this stuff in my head. I remember back in high school, I had a friend who used to draw all these cartoons and comics for her history summaries. It She said that it helped her to to understand more. Like she would remember these comics, and it's like a whole cartoon in her head when it comes to exams, and she would pass history that way. Now that was creative thinking, I won't lie. But now this pressure to perform leads to so many unhealthy stuff. There is the stress, yeah, and to some extent, there are also the exam malpractices. Now, the outcome of this is graduates that are experts at passing exams but lack the ability to translate this knowledge into real world solutions, hence limiting the development of job ready competencies. Yeah, so that's it for exam oriented learning and high stakes testing. Now, number three, we see limited practical exposure and experience. Now, students, secondary, university, here in Uganda often have very little exposure to real work environments or applied projects before they graduate. Now, stuff like school workshops, science labs, internships are either non existent or insufficient in most traditional schools. Now, let me give an example. A typical A level student may focus so much on science practicals that are a bit abstract for exam purposes, like let's say refraction through the glass prism. Like I have to get the perfect refractive angle, yeah, all that. But throughout their whole secondary life, they never tackled a real engineering problem or any kind of business project. Now, this is a story in most traditional schools today. Yeah. Um, we're looking at students that come out of school with all this theory in their heads, and applying them is such a big problem. Yeah. So now in universities, however much there are those mandatory practical sessions that they have, the recess, the mandatory internships, employers still find these inadequate. So, what does this tell us as Uganda? It tells us that our education system was inherited from a colonial model, that's training students for white collar jobs, and it has been slow to update. Yes. Now, there's a certain professor who said, we are still training students to be clerks, teachers, and lawyers when modern Uganda actually needs more metal fabricators, carpenters, and mechanics, among other skilled trades. Now, this mismatch means that graduates remain jobless or underemployed, while trades and technical jobs go unfulfilled due to the lack of skilled candidates. All in all, it's not our youth that lack the talent or ambition. Rather, their training has not given them the practical mastery to meet industry needs. Number four, we have the limited career guidance and visibility. Traditionally, success is being a doctor, success is being a lawyer, success is being an engineer. If you're not one of those, you didn't study and become successful. What does this mean for the students? It means as a student, with all these thoughts ingrained in your head from the get go, that oh, you'll grow up and become a lawyer, you'll grow up and become a pilot, you'll grow up and become a doctor, a surgeon, like those big words. Yeah. Now, as a student, we grow up having this narrow visibility of career options, and some secondary schools don't even help that at all, with the limited combinations that people can have at school. In A level, you either do arts or sciences. You don't mix them. No, that's how it is. That's tradition. Yeah. Now, as a result, we're seeing many youth that leave school, but they never learned about the diverse vocational, technical, and or entrepreneurial pathways. Okay, maybe of recent, entrepreneurship has also become another successful career. You can say, oh, this is a businessman. Yeah, businessman, businesswoman. But I think that term is thrown around a bit too recklessly. But okay. But these students, we see them holding unrealistic expectations and aim for these scarce office jobs with high salaries, which they could have, but like everyone is on this, like everyone wants to become a doctor. We're seeing BCM classes with more than 120 students. We're seeing physics classes with very many students. And you ask a child, what do you want to be like after this? What do you want to do? And they tell you, Oh, I'm doing this for my parents, I'm doing this for what. Now, this lack of career guidance and visibility actually impacts these students negatively. And we are seeing that with all this, there's a very high rate of NEET, NEET, that is not in education, not in employment or training. And 41% of our Ugandan youth are just sitting home and doing nothing with their certificates and degrees. So this is reflecting how the lack of career guidance leaves these students ignorant of their career options and unprepared to navigate life after school. Yeah. Without role models and information, students tend to all chase the same few conventional careers, leaving these other sectors, agriculture, um, mining, they leave them, have forestry, short of talent, and well, for them, they are unemployed. Now, lastly, number five, the equity imperative. This is something we cannot absolutely ignore at all, and it's a global issue. Education transformation, yes, it widens the gap. Yes, it helps everyone, but it widens gaps before it actually narrows them. And we see privileged schools innovate fast, then others get left behind, especially those like in the rural areas and whatnot. But it doesn't have to be this way. Yeah. Some of the most innovative education models that I've seen are in low resource settings. Why? Because constraint breeds creativity. Let that sink in. Now, we see in Brazil's favelas, students learn entrepreneurship by starting actual businesses. Then in rural Indonesia, students are using basic phones to access lessons. In Native American communities, students blend traditional knowledge with modern skills. What does this tell us? It tells us start with what you have, not what you wish you had. Yeah. Okay. So now the transition. The signs Uganda's education is evolving. Yes, we are getting there. Now, despite these challenges, the signs have been seen. Educators, policymakers, they've all seen the need to shift away from this purely theoretical exam-driven system towards one that values skills and mastery. However much we are not there yet, we are getting there. The signs, as I mentioned before, the CBC for the lower secondary. Now, in 2020, Uganda rolled out the CBC for O level, which emphasizes skills, application, critical thinking, all this over content. And yes, it's getting us there. Now, the government has been training teachers in learner centered methods, aiming to equip the learners with these essential skills and competencies that are required for the evolving world of work. Now, this CBC is focusing on what students can do rather than what they just know. Yes, its implementation has faced all kinds of problems. There is the limited resources, confusion, and everything. But it marks an important mindset shift. That quality of learning in Uganda is being prioritized over quantity of facts. Yeah. Then the other sign is valuing vocational and technical paths. Today, acceptance that vocational education can lead to respective careers has increased. Now, about 10 years back, vocational schools, I'm talking about YMCA, Nakawa Vocational Institute, all these were dismissed by parents as a refuge for those who have failed to make it to university. Now, nowadays, well, we can see S4s of branching off to opt for technical school instead of going for A level. And we see these guys come out of school and they are actually accepted. Like parents are now allowing their students to go into these technical schools and actually do like this practical hands-on education as opposed to the academic. So now this really shows that the practical expertise is gaining respect in Uganda. Now, number three, entrepreneurship and the startup culture. In most countries, a lot of emphasis is placed on internships and entrepreneurial experiences to bridge the education employment gap. Yeah. What is good is Kampala's startup scene is providing new pathways for youth. With the limited formal jobs available, we are seeing very many Ugandans in town, everywhere. Someone is starting their own business through the through the startups, tech innovations, and also the gig economy. So now everyone is getting a bit of money these days. Yeah. Now, these days, Kampala, we're seeing Kampala hosting innovation hubs, programs that incubate students' ideas. Even Makerere has one, which is good. Then we're also seeing the government, the private sector also stepping in. There was the Youth Venture Capital Fund and Enterprise Uganda, such things that are training the youth in business skills, and they encourage them to view self-employment as a viable route. Now, students with skills in so many areas can directly apply them into the market instead of just sitting home. Yeah. Now, like Safe Border, many people have been employed through it, and such a success story has helped students envision alternative careers beyond the traditional office jobs. Now, this emphasizes that innovation and practical problem solving are rewarded. I'm not saying that we should all now go and become border riders, no, but it's just shining a light on um, how socialists have thought these days, and they have thought of entrepreneurial endeavors that would benefit their society. So we see in Safe Border that these young guys started it, and we're seeing very many, should I say, semi-skilled laborers get employed into this. They are making ends meet some way, somehow. Yeah. So that's it for the transition. Now we are building the bridge from schools to skills to success. We need to pursue. We need to pursue. Sorry. We need to pursue reforms that cultivate mastery, practical experience, and career awareness in order to build this bridge between education and employment. Yeah. So my how can we do it? I suggest number one, we adopt mastery based learning. So now, mastery based learning is all about students only moving on when they've truly mastered something. So the idea of all this is instead of teaching to the calendar, you teach to understanding. And instead of the one size fits all pacing, we let students move at their own pace with coaching and feedback, not just marks. Yeah. Now, this isn't a new concept. Yeah. Benjamin Bloom, yeah, talked about it in the 1980s. We're seeing NCDC embedding elements of mastery-based learning in in the CBC, the competency-based curriculum. We're seeing things like Khan Academy, XQ schools, and others around the world are applying it just with better tools. Now, let's visualize this. How does mastery-based learning look like in a Ugandan setting? So now imagine you're a teacher in, let's say, S1 math class, and you've just finished the topic on linear equations. Now you gave these students an exam, yeah? And these are the results. David got 90, Sharon got 67, Paizo got 43, and Lydia, poor Lydia, was absent. Now, what do we normally do next week? Traditionally, we'd maybe do corrections or us tell them, oh, most of the class passed. Uh, how they call it? Consult from your peers. That's what we'd normally do, yeah. But in mastery-based learning, this is what we would do. We'd say, okay, David, you got the most points. Yeah. So you jump ahead to enrichment content or you help your peers. Now, Sharon and Faizo, you stay with the current skill using the video explanations that mastery based learning provides, hints, practice sets, and everything until you can prove that you've understood linear equations. Then we shall move to the next topic. Maybe let's say quadratic equations, something. Now, Lydia, who missed, she would watch the recorded version of all these, all of all the whole course unit linear equations. She would watch them and get caught up, does the exam and moves on with her peers. So in all this, we're seeing no one is left behind, no one is held back. You all move at your own pace. Yeah. Now the question is, um, okay, this sounds kind of nice, yeah, but can it work in Uganda? Now this is where a tool comes in, Khan Academy. It's a curriculum, yeah, that is free and globally recognized over 190 countries. It's even being used in Uganda for mostly homeschoolers and some international schools to supplement on the international curricula that they have at their schools. Yeah. So now Khan Academy offers interactive lessons that align to math, science, and literacy concepts. It also offers real-time dashboards for teachers, so you're always updated with your students. Translations in Swahili and French. And hopefully, if Uganda is serious, we shall also see Uganda coming in. Yes. And the best part of it all, it's Creative Commons licensed. This means that it's free, editable, and available for Uganda to localize. Yeah. So in mastery based learning, we're going to think of learning like building a house. Yeah. We are going to think of learning like building a house. Now, in traditional schools, even though the foundation is weak, maybe we'll like keep on building or something. But in mastery based learning, we don't move to the next floor until the base is strong. Okay, number two, we must teach what machines can't do. Now, with the AI revolution that's coming up, we've seen it greatly in mostly those countries abroad, and slowly it's coming into Uganda. We're seeing different AI lessons going on, everything. Now, with AI, jobs are changing today. Now, the routine jobs are disappearing, yeah, and because AI can do them. Yeah. So by the time, let's say the S1s, today's S1s, by the time they finish university, that's in like 10, 15, 17 years. Yeah. Some of the jobs we're preparing for them may no longer exist. Why? Because of artificial intelligence. So we must ask, are we teaching what lasts? We must focus on things like creativity, problem solving, self direction, emotional intelligence, innovation. Now, such skills that machines cannot replace. And these are skills that the world is willing to pay for. Yeah. Someone who can create all these problems, create all these solutions to various problems, innovate stuff, like use our heads wisely. Yeah. So now mastery based and project based learning, all these are small aspects of CBC. They are really working here. We are seeing the difference between the students that graduated from the old curriculum and the ones that are graduating now from this new curriculum. There's that confidence. Yeah. Okay. Now, number three, strengthen vocational and technical education. Now, vocational and academic excellence should be seen as parallel and equally honorable paths. Yeah. How can we do this? We should remove stigma from vocational training. Now, um, as I said earlier, we are starting to see these the students who go to vocational institutes come out with like more practical skills, like they're able to do stuff hands-on. Yeah. So now this stigma is going, but we should like completely remove it. Now, the success of Skilling Uganda, it's an initiative that started some time back, shows how investments in TVET pay off. We're seeing Now, if by the time Skilling Uganda very very successful in these vocational schools. Now imagine if we could put like something like CBC into these vocational schools, we would be helping these students learn better and everything. Yeah. Then integrating practical skills training into secondary education. Things like coding, tailoring, mechanics as extracurriculars, which would make the students much more versatile. I remember in primary, we used to have this thing called societies. You'd go and learn all these other skills, all these other skills like tailoring, and it was a great foundation as you grew up. Cookery, there's so many things that that you could do on a Thursday evening in the society during the society's time, and it was such a really nice thing. Like as you grow up, because you learn these things from a young age and you're able to apply them. Now imagine if we could also do this for the secondary schools, because there are very few these days that actually teach students these vocational and technical bits of life. So yeah, it would be something good. Then there are also public private partnerships. Yeah. In order to support the vocational institutes, local employers could adopt a vocational school, donate equipment, offer apprenticeship slots, and ultimately, vocational and academic excellence should be seen as equally honorable paths. Now, this is to the educators and maybe the policymakers out there. Yes, we government should continue enhancing facilities in technical institutes and ensure standardization such that a student from let's say Nakawa Vocational Institute, after they graduate and like get that certificate, it should be seen as something of quality, like it carries quality in the real world as they go out in jobs and what. And this could really solve the unemployment problem here in Uganda. So now emphasizing that these vocational tracks don't attack the traditional system, but instead it augments it. It gives the country a broader base of skilled manpower, which, yeah, would really be helpful for us. Number four, enhance career guidance and exposure. Now, career days in schools should not only showcase the successful lawyers, successful doctors, the pilots, but also we should bring in successful craftsmen, artists, farmers in order to broaden the students' perspectives. Those are the diverse role models that I put in the slides. We should bring in such diverse role models. Now, like let's say these successful businessmen get these let's say the founders of Safe Border, there's Tubayo, there's so much that these young children could learn from these guys instead of just looking like okay, maybe they are medically gifted, like they'll become a lawyer and excel at it, but what of those who aren't? Maybe their expertise is in coming up with ideas. Maybe their expertise is in persistence, in perseverance through everything. Now, these kind of people can channel their gifts into other alternative paths like entrepreneurship. Yeah. Now, career guidance also shouldn't be a last minute thing like, oh, S3s, they're going to choose, no, S2s, they're going to choose subjects for S3, S4s, they're going to choose combinations for A level. We should have career guidance there for them and whatnot. But it should be something that has been explored with these children from an early stage. From S1, you keep on talking to them about all these different things they could do. And this helps a student like visualize like what are my strengths and my weaknesses? What can I go into? What can I not? Where will I thrive best? Such things that would actually help them. Now, with better guidance, youth can align their education choices with market opportunities. Like, let's say maybe the booming sectors these days are agriculture, agroforestry, agribusiness, ICT. Yeah, so now they can start saying, oh, I like coding so much, I like computers so much, and thrive at all that. Yeah. Now, students should also be taught and guided through a skills map. What is a skills map? Now, a skills map is like a mental pathway where we like just help these students visualize, like if they want to become a doctor, if they want to go into tech, such things. Now, here's a career pathway example for like digital skills. You say, okay, so you'll start with with the basic digital literacy. You use computer, internet browsing, email. Yeah. Now from there, you can go get a Microsoft Excel certificate. Here it's majorly data organization and basic analytics. You know that you can move on to an entry level data entry job. You earn like 500,000 a month. Yeah. Now this would give like the students proper alignment into what they are going for, and it would help them. Yeah. Yeah, you can see the rest. Junior data analyst role, you would earn 1.2 per month. Now this is your career launching opportunity where you can go big. Yeah, then you can become a project lead or a self-empowered analyst. Here you'll be majorly doing freelance, consulting or management. Now such a thing would help these students map and keep track of of all they are doing. Yeah. So that's it for a skills map. Now number 5, yeah, this is the last one. Foster closer school industry collaboration. Now, bringing education and employment closer requires that what is taught in class is what is needed in the market or is what the industry needs. Now, education guys, policymakers, like everyone who sits down should actively seek inputs from like employers and align the curriculum with real industry needs. Like if we are no longer okay, recently we've had this thing of the expired courses. I think that's one way of filtering what is taught in schools and what's actually needed in the real world. So yeah, we are on our way there. Then creating internships and apprenticeships, even like in high schools. Okay, in S6, it's not exactly realistic, but like in S6 vacation, these students should like have a certain path that's clear for them. Like if they're going to do this, they can get some work, some gig stuff at companies that are already booming in these sectors. Yeah. Then their curriculum reviews should be continuous. Now, schools should be able to introduce modules on emerging fields like, let's say, solar panel installation in physics. Then you can also do digital marketing and entrepreneurship, of course, with the guidance of the practitioners in the real world. So this would break the silo between academic and vocational, because Uganda would be able to produce graduates that are job ready and much more innovative. Now, education should should not just be an isolated tower, but instead a collaborative venture with the community and employers. It takes a village to raise a child. Yes. So now let's imagine a high school where the community is the classroom, a high school where there's a clear focus on students. Let's imagine a high school where all students are prepared for college and careers. Now, if we want Uganda's youth to thrive in the future, we must rethink how they learn, what they learn, and how we know that they've learned it. So, in the community where the community is the classroom, here the students master academic knowledge and skills by diving into challenging projects in partnership with local businesses, tech institutions, and non-profits, and they learn by doing it. Then, with the, in number 2, with a clear focus on students, we're seeing students have ownership and responsibility for how they learn. because all the learning would be based on their needs. That's where mastery-based learning stems from, and I feel it's a really good supplement for especially the new curriculum CBC, and it would really help out these kids. So yeah, where all students are prepared for college and careers. Um, Here, students actively explore their personal and career interests early on, and they participate in high quality internships and apprenticeships. Now, if these children, if these are the kind of children, if this is the kind of environment these children are in, I feel like we would be really making a difference out there. So, as I end, education shouldn't just be an isolated tower. I've said this before, but instead a collaborative venture with the community and employers. Then the goal isn't to discard tradition, but to upgrade it. Now, bridging the gap between education and employment isn't about discarding our traditional educational strength, but it's about building on them and reorienting the system towards real world success. And then we need mastery based, practical, and guided education. So we must move from our one size fits all exam driven model to a more flexible mastery based approach that's more practical, creative, and career aware. So let's prepare doers and not just memorizers in this new world. Now, for everyone out there, if you're a student, policymaker, educator, teacher, just a parent, it's okay. The message is clear. We all benefit from an education system that produces competent doers and not just knowledgeable test takers. Now, these are some resources that would be helpful, maybe would be helpful to anyone out there. These are some of them are from Khan Academy, others are from Silicon schools. Like how these countries are these countries are bridging the gap for their students. Now, this reform that I have been talking about is really not meant to attack the past or tradition, but just to honor the aspirations of our students by ensuring that years in school translate into skills in hand. You can go to school, you come out and say, yes, I did this, I studied this. Here are the fruits of my hard work. Now, in doing so, we will be able to unlock the full potential of Uganda's young population, turning academic accomplishments into tangible contributions that drive our economy and society forward. Thank you so much for listening. And once again, I apologize for the blackout that happened. But in case you'd like to continue this conversation with us, you can reach out via our socials, LinkedIn, Instagram, X, and email at kevin at douglasleadershipacademy.org. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your time. I may have exceeded a bit 8 minutes, but I thank you so much for your patience and for having this having this session with me. Once again, I am Ramos Michelle from Douglas Leadership Academy. Let us reimagine education together. Thank you so much and have a very blessed rest of the day, rest of the week, rest of the month. Yes, thank you. Bye bye.